to, we tell the people, lock the door, leave the place. It isn't even worth it for an exorcist to go in there.
So, good evening, everybody. I thought there was going to be another intro that we're going to play. Sorry, I misunderstood how that worked. We are doing the Warren Files tonight, and
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Warren Files. Today we're going to try something a little different. We have an actual professional radio host as a co-host. I'd like to introduce everybody to Greg Balkin, and he is what station are you on up in?
I'm over on AM 950 in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities.
Cool. Good deal. And Greg has his own couple shows, actually. I think you do more than the one, or do you just broadcast it multiple times?
So we do Ghostbox Radio every Sunday at 4:06 p.m. Live, and then we do a replay on Saturday at 8:06. And then I do a Sunday night show, Ghostbox Live, where we do live Spirit Box sessions. And then we do a Tuesday night one, Ghostbox Live experimental sessions, where we try different things up. So.
Yeah, and I caught that last night. That was pretty interesting. That box was pretty active.
It was a good night, and we have some other equipment out and stuff as well, and it was just a lot of fun to be able to try different things. And a big part of it is people's interaction, people who are watching, and it's like a community effort. So yeah, it's fun. You guys tripped me out there at the beginning, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was. Did it not show that one intro, or?
Well, you guys started late, and that's why and only my mic was live, and I thought, oh, maybe I'd misunderstood, and so the radio person in me just decides to just go with it. So
no, it sounded good. It was perfect. It was just the other video was playing. No, it's kind of funny. So just so everybody knows too, why we brought Greg on. I feel like I know Chris pretty well, and there's a lot of. So we're going to talk about things that we've talked about in the past, but I think Greg is going to add a fresh perspective of it because he's not as familiar with Chris as I am. So things that I may think are common knowledge, Greg wants to know about. And there's probably a lot of new listeners out here too tonight because we have shared it to different pages and things like this. So Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what we do here, and because there's probably some new listeners tonight.
Yeah, I noticed some new names, and welcome everyone. Appreciate your joining us this evening. This is the Warren Files. We are I guess you'd say the media forefront of the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. What we do every couple of weeks, we come on, we talk about paranormal. We try to do it in a way that gets rid of the drama, gets rid of the hyperbole, and gives you some real answers. The foundation carries on the work of my grandparents, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Been doing this with them since 1980. Got started as a child, and today we serve the world. So if anybody else has any fresh questions for us, we are happy to take them. We're always interested in educating people and also looking for new ways for us to think of things. So how's that?
That's wonderful. That's perfect. Like I said, I mean, a lot of people know you, but then, there's you never know when you're tapping into new people. So it's probably good practice to reintroduce yourself every time you're on here. So with that being said, I think tonight's topic is going to be, we're going to talk about, I know the title said The Conjuring House and the Haunting in Connecticut, but I think we're going to more focus on the haunting in Connecticut, because Chris, that was your case that you did for your grandparents. So, and I'm going to turn over the questioning and stuff like that now to Greg, because like I said, I feel like I know a lot about it, and maybe he doesn't know everything that I already know. So, he'll ask some fresh questions, and people in the comments, go ahead and ask questions, and I will post those as they come up.
And one of the things that I think it's super important to delineate right from the start, because getting ready for this, we watched the 2009 film, and the 2009 film really is not a good place to start to talk about the case, and that was a very obvious thing from the start. So Chris, why don't we start with just the question of what was your involvement, because it was a long involvement, wasn't it?
Absolutely, it was. From the moment my grandparents got the phone call from Carmen Snedeker and her husband Al, my grandparents immediately got a hold of me and said, "We're going to be going for this interview. I'd like you to come along. Want you to also meet somebody that we want you to work with." That turned out to be my cousin. And from that day on, I spent the next 9.5 weeks in that house, that former funeral home. It's one of several really famous cases that I worked on with my grandparents, but that's the one where I was actually the one in charge of it.
So when you're in charge of something like that, what is it? What does that mean when you are running a case, and especially what does it mean when the people that brought you in are Ed and Lorraine Warren?
Well, I that's not really a fair question. I mean, they're my grandparents, so my level of respect for them wasn't quite as high as the general public. To me, they were Graham and Gramps.
Graham and Graham. Yep.
And that Graham and Gramps said, "Go to this house and check it out." And I'm like, oh, "Okay, sure." So, for me, I was only 22. I'd just come back from the Peace Corps, maybe 23. I just come back from Africa, and they wanted me to get more involved again. And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And the next thing I know, I was in this house for 2.5 months.
And I mean, literally day and night you were there.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I most days.
Yeah.
But from the time I got done at 3:30 in the afternoon, I would be there until I left again 7:30 in the morning.
And at that point, my understanding was that the haunting there started, I think, in 1986, and something 86, 87.
That's about right. Yeah.
How long since it started for them was it before you all got involved?
Oh, I wasn't there until 90.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I would have been in the Peace Corps 88, 89, right about 90. And that would have been when I would have gotten involved with this case.
So they
were going through it for a while. Their son was the first one. Their eldest son was the first one to be affected. And he had leukemia.
Yes.
And he was being treated at University of Connecticut Medical Center in Farmington, Connecticut. But they were traveling from New York State every day for his treatments. And Carmen needed a place to stay. And she found this house for rent in Southington, Connecticut, real close. And she wasn't paying a lot of attention to the fact that there were embalming tables and grave markers and all sorts of crap left down in the basement. She didn't care. All she cared about was, finally, I found a place I can afford where I can get my son to the hospital. Hey, just a word of caution for anybody who's watching this and trying to understand my grandparents and our work. There are a couple of really good books about my grandparents' work, The Demonologist, Devil in Connecticut, Satan's Harvest, which is about the Maurice Theriault case. Maurice is from The Nun. But then there are others, like In a Dark Place, which became the movie called A Haunting in Connecticut, which the author who did that particular book didn't really care. And he didn't listen to our notes. I had 9.5 weeks of minute-by-minute notes of what took place in that house, and he ignored it all.
That's
and
what.
then he's blamed my grandfather, saying that my grandfather told him, "I'll just make it interesting. It doesn't matter what the details are."
That's right. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
Carmen said in that one. It's called The Fear Is Real, and Carmen said that the guy that wrote that book really just butchered it. He just wrote whatever he wanted to. He didn't care what was fact or fiction.
Yeah, no, it was terrible. In one scene, he's got us, me and my cousin are there. Some demon appears to us. I see it. I pass out from fear, and then he is sexually assaulted by the demon. This did not happen. Just want to make that clear.
Now, I mean, and one of the things too, between 1990 and 2023 is that investigations that there are some things that have changed and different now than before. What were some of those things that, I mean, there's some obvious things, and there's some that you might, through your years of experience, might be a little bit more delicate, may not be as obvious.
One of the things that I admired about my grandparents is that they adapted their theories and their approaches over time based on what they learned. You know, when they first got started, they didn't even believe in demons. And it was only overwhelming evidence that got them believing in it. And then they kind of went, especially my grandfather, went too far the other way, and with the pendulum, and everything became demonic for him, which is just not the case either. When I look at this particular case, and when I look at all of our cases, my grandfather called me a demonologist when I was 22 years old. At that point, there were like 6 or 7 demonologists in the United States, all of whom were priests, except for my grandfather. And he's telling me I'm an expert on demons at that age. And I'm like, wow, thanks. All right, I'll put that right on my business card. It took me about 4 more years to realize it was a bunch of bull crap. There's no way I'm a demonologist at 26 years old. Certainly not at 22. When we were involved in that case, my grandfather had this theory that necromancy and necrophilia had both been performed in this place. There's absolutely zero evidence that any of that ever took place. My grandfather could sometimes look for dramatic hyperbole to spice up a story, which I never really understood. I mean, I don't see a need for that. What we deal with is extraordinary. There's no reason to bring it any further than what we have already experienced. But when I look at this particular case, it's really hard for me to understand what we were actually dealing with there. This was a 2-family house that had been a funeral home that had been split into 2 apartments, I guess you'd call them. And the woman on the top floor also came to me and claimed that she had been sexually assaulted by this entity. She also claimed that she was in jail. Whereas both Carmen and Al claimed to have been raped and sodomized. And obviously they were not saying that they enjoyed that at all. I've dealt with incubus and succubus cases in the past, not very often, thank God. They're pretty horrific. I'm not sure, is it a demon? If so, what is a demon? We can go down that rabbit hole anytime you like.
Yeah.
But whatever that manifestation is incredibly powerful, and it can be very deadly. Yes, I don't have an answer. To me, it's not a fallen angel.
Yeah.
That's too simple an answer, and it doesn't fit with the evidence, which is cross-cultural. These are things that manifest according to cultural and spiritual beliefs in different locations. So their behaviors are dictated by our expectations, which is very interesting to me.
So if I'm asking you a question such as, out of, what kind of percentage of cases that you really believe that you had worked on that really were demonology cases, it'd be a hard one to answer, because it does go back to that question of what are we talking about here?
Whenever we're dealing with something let's call them negative entities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happier to call them negative manifestations or entities. Those are a very small percentage of our cases, extremely small percentage, like less than 1%.
Yeah.
Most stuff we deal with are either psychic manifestations from people who have out of control abilities. They're ghosts who are trying to get noticed for one reason or another. Things like that. It's not the devil come to knock on your door most times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm an exorcist. I won't call myself a demonologist, but I am an exorcist. But I've been doing this now for going on 43 years this summer, and I've only been involved in 7 exorcisms.
Wow.
So, and I've had maybe 10,000 cases.
Getting back to the house in Connecticut, the funeral parlor in Connecticut, we got from Carmen. Carmen had mentioned a couple things happening, such as she would, when she was mopping the floor, basically turn to a blood-like color. She talked about crucifixes falling off the walls and stuff. What did you find when you were there?
Oh God, so many things. But the crucifix thing was interesting to me, because not only would the crucifixes disappear or fall off the wall, but they would leave an outline of the crucifix on the wall. We've got photos of that. It's very interesting to me. There was a piece. Here's a piece of evidence that anybody can Google right now while they're listening to us. But if there was a night when, I think it was a Current Affair, which was a nightly news magazine on the television, they had done an interview with us.
Mm-hmm.
And they were supposed to be showing that interview at like 7 or 7:30 that evening. And just as it was about to come on, the transformer right in front of the funeral home, I mean directly in front, Carmen just got done saying, "Hey, come on in, everyone, it's about to start." And I watched this giant garbage can shaped transformer on the telephone pole start to spark and arc and then blow up. It knocked out the power for all of Southington, Connecticut that day. And you can Google that to see that it really did happen. Never did get to see that interview.
Wow. So we do have from a relatively recent interview from Carmen. She's talking about the crucifix, and it's I think people will find this very interesting. I'll move it over to you, Jeff.
Yeah, this is a really good clip, and I'll just play it and then we'll talk about it afterwards. But this is pretty crazy. This is from the show The Fear is Real, reinvestigating the haunting in Connecticut.
There were crucifixes on both sides of the door jamb that had been there for many, many years. They were discolored, and you could tell that they'd been there for many years. They started disappearing one at a time. Most of the activity stayed in the morgue until those crucifixes disappeared. And as they disappeared...
That
scared the crap out of me.
How can that possibly have just happened like that? Are you okay, Carmen?
I'm fine.
It didn't hit you?
No, it just scared the crap out of me.
Something is really cold in this room. I want to get out of this room right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that was funny because I watched that the other night and I had headphones on. And when that happened, dude, I jumped like I was. It was, probably getting close to midnight. I'm sitting in here by myself watching that on the computer, and I had headphones on, and that thing happened. I just went, whoa, like that just freaked me out.
So Chris,
Carmen's an amazing lady.
yeah. What's your reaction to her reaction to what happened in that clip?
Did you see how cool she was about it?
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that was Carmen. She just got used to it. She became incredible. And I saw her come under attack so many times. And yet she was the strength. She was the backbone of that family. She was amazing. It's funny. Netflix is about to put on a documentary. At least I filmed it last February. And this is on the Conjuring 3 case, Devil Made Me Do It case.
Yeah.
Devil in Connecticut. And what happened with Carmen just reminded me. We were talking about some of the demonic activity on that case. And as we're talking, I'm in this very old antique-filled room. And all of a sudden, this red light comes on behind a statue of Christ, illuminating Christ right behind me. I was like, pretty cool.
Yeah.
A well-lit Christ.
Yeah.
Here's the question, and I'm in an area that I've always listened to other demonologists say stuff like evil can wait, evil doesn't leave. Do you think that even when you're exorcised, do you think that you're completely free of the situation?
The thing I try to explain to people is there's a reason why Maurice in the nun case, Maurice Theriault, Frenchie, why he was more susceptible than anyone else in his family or anybody else in the area. There was something underlying vulnerabilities that he had, traumas that he had, childhood traumas that were horrifying, that opened him up to this. And because those things weren't dealt with properly over time, the possession came back, the manifestation came back, and ended up with him dying and his wife losing her arm. So, yeah, it can absolutely come back. It's spiritual warfare. And if you lower your guard, yes, these things will come back.
It's one of the things that don't we always talk about as investigators to our clients. Don't talk about it even amongst yourselves. You gotta get yourself into a, make your room, make your life, somehow, sunshinier, bring in flowers, not think about the stuff that, had happened. It's hard to do. And that's the real obstacle, but you want to be able to try to move along and not ask it to come back, even if you don't think you're asking it to come back.
Exactly.
Do you think, and this is kind of a loaded question, Chris, do you think she still has something with her? I mean, it wasn't even her, it was Philip, but do you think that something is keeping its eye on her?
It was her son Philip at first.
Yes.
As soon as he was sent off to an asylum to be treated for his both leukemia and what they suspected was schizophrenia, the attacks immediately fell on Carmen and then her niece and Al, her husband. And then eventually all of us were attacked one way or the other. Do I think that she's free today? Yeah, I do. I haven't kept in touch with her very much. I love Carmen, but she turned her life around. She got herself in a very good spiritual place, and I do think that she's doing well now. Yeah.
Can I chime in here with a question about this case too then? So one of the things also in this documentary, and you don't have to answer this if this touches on some shaky ground, but it seems like she was really upset with your grandparents for the choice to go public, because they it sounded like your grandparents, and correct the record if she was wrong in telling this, but it sounds like your grandparents told them that their only choice was to go public so that the church would get involved more, because the church did not want any negative publicity ever. So they wanted to go public with the case so that the church would get involved and do the exorcism and stuff.
My grandparents often would use that tactic. From the early 70s on through the 80s, they would try this tactic of publicly pressuring the church. A lot of people think my grandparents have a close relationship with the church. It was a love-hate relationship, and it depended on which bishop they happened to be dealing with at any given moment. It's also why my grandparents used non-Vatican Roman Catholics, old order Roman Catholics, for a lot of their work, like Bishop McKenna. He was pre-Vatican II Catholic priest. He broke away from the church and worked with them. One of the complaints I always had with my grandparents was going public, with them wanting to do the TV shows. And I was a far more critical viewer than most, because they were my grandparents. So I'd watch them on the news and watch them talking over one another during interviews and stuff, and it was embarrassing to me. They were still getting used to it. For them, it was all brand new as well. But Carmen had a right to criticize them for that. Now, it was a different time. There wasn't internet. There wasn't a way for them to advertise that they're out there.
Right.
Carmen wouldn't have known where to go for help if she hadn't seen that they were doing an interview, doing a lecture.
Yep.
I believe it was. So there was a reason for what my grandparents did. Today, we don't have to do that. The foundation doesn't advertise our clients because we don't have to. If we were ever stuck in a position where the only way we could possibly, let the world know that we're here to help is by exposing some of our clients, I don't know what we'd do.
And I watched. I was going to say so that you'll know what case I'm talking about when I mention this, but there was a case that we almost took on but didn't about 4 or 5 months ago. You probably know which one I'm talking about, or not.
Is it a woman?
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I saw a video today of a team that went into her house, got videos. They've got the absolute crappiest EVPs in the world. Like, it's probably feet shuffling. I didn't listen to it with headphones, but they're claiming it's a growl. And so they did it for the publicity only. They wanted to get clips for their channel. They're not offering any help to her. All they're doing is making it worse because she thinks they're professionals. She said so, and that they are not helping her, and the professionals are telling her that there's growling going on and this and that and the other thing. And it's I almost think like the route that your grandparents had to take back in the day with the TV cameras, really, I don't know if it's as bad as it is now, because
it's worse now.
Yeah, because people are purposely taking advantage of people just to get YouTube clips. Your grandparents didn't do that.
Digital tech sucks. Sorry, you tech guys, but it really does.
Yeah.
I had a case a couple of years ago. Woman sends me this video, and you can hear the demon in the background as she's walking down in the basement, and she's taking video of it, and she's like, "Oh my God, can't you hear it?" I'm like, you do realize that you've hit the slow speed on your video camera, and that's your breathing that we're hearing.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I think like one of the worst too is like watching, like I'm a part of a couple Facebook groups that are specifically about Gettysburg, and Gettysburg is rife with people doctoring pictures and whatnot, and putting them in there. And it's just, I get your point, Chris, when you're saying, digital era sucks, because we're not saying that technology is a bad thing. What we're saying though is when it becomes super easy to fake stuff, it makes it harder for all the legitimate investigators to be taken seriously.
Exactly.
Or if people don't know how things work
anymore, because you can fake it so easily.
Yeah. But like I said, or if people don't know how photography works, how your your iPhone, when you take a picture, depending on the lighting, will slow the shutter speed and all this other stuff, and you'll get a light flash across the screen, and people say it's a ghost. No, it's your overexposed. Your iPhone just took the light settings and created what it wanted to.
Well, it's also interesting, Chris, when you're talking about like your grandparents doing the shows and stuff, I mean, like you said, you're at a period of time that no one really, ghost stories were done around a campfire. There wasn't, there's a lot of people who didn't believe. I mean, I just saw the other day, someone posted the picture of your grandparents on, I forget which show it is, but you have Cheech and Chong next to them.
Yeah, that's a great
you know what
one.
I mean? Yeah. And you could see that, and I've not seen the footage, so I don't know if they were just joking or whatever else. But I mean, even if they were joking, that is sort of the thing that they had to deal with. Where now, if I say to someone, I'm a paranormal investigator, you get immediately, like, they tell you 5 stories. Even if they don't believe, they're going to tell you the stories that still affected them. I mean, back then it's a completely different canvas.
It was. Yeah, I mean, I was doing the talk show circuit in the 80s, Geraldo and all these other programs, but I never liked it, never felt comfortable with it. And my grandparents were naturals at it. They loved it. It energized them. Although I think my grandfather got pissed off far more often than he ever enjoyed it. Because there was always a professional debunker that would come on to try to prove that my grandparents were crackpots. And my grandfather did not have patience for those kind of fools.
No. I mean, and now it's a very different landscape. And your grandmother was able to see some of that, but your grandfather really didn't, did he? I mean, because it was 2006 he passed, right?
And he wasn't in his right mind.
Sure.
Since 1998, I think.
Okay.
He had a heart arrhythmia, and his heart stopped for 15 minutes, and when he came back, there was very little left.
Oh.
It wasn't the theory that was the result of one of the cases? That he had the heart?
No,
he had
my
a heart attack.
grandmother always said that his first heart attack was caused by a poltergeist case in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. Although, in reality, he had the heart attack during the exorcism of Maurice Theriault.
Okay.
I was there for that. I remember my grandmother's reaction when my grandfather was complaining. She said, "Oh, Ed, have a banana. You're probably low on potassium." Just to show you that not every no psychic is right 100% of the time.
Right. And that's, I mean, it had to have been hard for you, maybe not, because you trust your grandparents, but I mean, to see like people openly probably mock them because of like you said, we're in a different time at that point. I mean, they're still out there. Skeptics are still out there, not going to go away. There's nothing wrong with them. But back then, I mean, it was really it could be looked at with a lot of ridicule.
I'm in a unique position because from the time I was about 10 years old or even a little younger, I've watched these 2 people that I loved dearly being judged for talking about some of the craziest things anybody could ever imagine. Ghosts and goblins, the things that go bump in the night.
Yeah.
And not only talking about them, but actually being on the steps of a haunted house in front of the television cameras. It was a surreal experience. And my grandfather, they did a movie about one of their cases called The Haunted. You can check it out on YouTube. They did the demon murder case where Andy Griffith plays a version of my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
Kevin Bacon plays Arnie Johnson, although all the names were changed. That's also on YouTube. You can check that out. I don't know that things are better or worse today. The public is more open to it all. But is that just because it's popular entertainment? probably. I don't think that people's minds are any more open or less open than they've been ages ago.
I almost think it's got to be worse today because back then there wasn't Facebook or Twitter or any of that stuff to where, I mean, there's a lot of famous celebrities that do podcasts and things like that, or put out their opinions and things like that. That their advice to everybody is don't ever look at the comments because it's nothing but garbage. It's people that just rip you in the comments. That's all that happens. And some people, if your grandpa got that upset about people coming on and debunking him, imagine if he had a Twitter account where he's got 500 a day. Where
well,
that
and
could be interesting. Ed Warren with a Twitter account.
well, and
I tried to defend them one time, about 10 or 15 years ago online, and they were sure that I was my grandmother.
oh,
They were sure that I was my grandmother. I was like, guys, you don't know what you're talking about. Just relax. It's like, but that's when I realized you can't fight trolls.
no,
And-
it's not worth it.
No.
I mean, I
There are
guess
people who come and go with the foundation, and maybe they want to say bad things about us, or people who don't get into the foundation for one reason or another, and they want to say bad things about us. I will never punch down on them.
no.
There's too much of that drama in this field, and we're trying to instill a sense of professionalism. So you're never going to see us do that crap.
Can I ask the audience a quick question while we ask our next question? Can you put in the comments if Ed and Lorraine Warren were somehow in some way part of why you got into this, why you became an investigator, why you got into it? I'd love to see that because I think that it's going to be it's not going to be surprising. I think it's going to be a lot of people being like, I did. I guess, to Jeff's question, about you can imagine Ed Warren with a Twitter account. It's hard to say what would be worse, but I was just curious, Chris, what you would think. Would Ed have a harder time with trolls or a harder time with people in certain TV shows taking that paranormal to an area that is really pretty atrocious, I think. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, my grandfather would have had more of a problem with anybody coming after him personally. That was my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother probably would be more incensed by the unprofessionalism and the ridiculous crap that you see on television.
Mm-hmm.
Of the two, my grandfather was the one that would watch a good horror film. My grandmother was not into them either. So
They lived it.
Yeah, but your grandmother too actually kind of got into the TV show world a little bit, with their Paranormal State and things like that. I mean, they brought her in on some cases, and I'll be honest. Actually, when that show first started, I thought that was a really, really good, legitimate show. I think it turned into something later on in the years that was, I think they found a gravy train and they were trying to really, really cash in on it. But your grandma was not brought in to cash in on anything. They brought her in for her skills and her talents. So.
My grandmother loved the host, the young man that was from Penn State.
Ryan.
Ryan something? Ryan Buell?
Yep, Ryan Buell.
Yeah. He was my grandmother loved men. Not sexually or anything, don't get me wrong.
No.
She was the same way with anybody. But she loved men. She did. And she loved Ryan. Brian had his problems. He got into drugs. He started taking advantage of people. The fame went to his head. Just another reason why I've got this thing about ego in this field. I just hate it. I hate seeing how fame can twist people, and I don't ever want us to have anything to do with that. Chuck, if you want to know more about Ed and Lorraine Warren, don't check out The Conjuring or the Annabelle movies. Just check out some of their videos online or go to the Warren Files on YouTube. That's where you'll find out our interpretation of the paranormal and a lot of my grandparents' cases.
And Chuck's a friend of mine, and Chuck, I would also highly recommend, I mean, I know it requires you to read, and I'm not sure if you know how to, but you should read The Demonologist. And that is one of my favorite books. And it, talks a lot. And, honestly, if you want a book that scares you a little bit, I mean, that's a great one. There's some great pictures in there, great photos. And it's a really good read. But then also definitely, obviously, all the stuff that Chris is talking about as well.
Or you can join our Patreon page, and you can get the audio version of the book, The Demonologist, along with Chris's commentary.
Yes, I read it for the public. We'll be doing chapter 8 this week, and then we talk about each chapter and give you an interpretation of where my grandparents were at that time and what this really means, and how the information we have today doesn't fit with what was written back in the 1970s when The Demonologist was written. That's the thing, I'm rereading this book again for the God knows how many times, and I can see how my grandparents emphasized the horror aspect of that, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not the way it's supposed to be done now.
No.
But I understand, it was marketing and so forth. But,
so who is the actual author of The Demonologist? It's not...
The Demonologist and The Devil in Connecticut were both written by Gerald Brittle with my grandparents' help.
Yep.
Those are the ones my grandparents were the most involved with. Then the one, Satan's Harvest, was written by 2 Boston Globe reporters. That's the Maurice Theriault case. That was really well written. The Haunted was not well written. The In a Dark Place was terribly written.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've never read Graveyards, Ghost Hunters, or the werewolf one, so I don't know.
Now, Jeff, I have a couple more questions for Chris, and we can switch gears after that if you like.
Nope, go ahead.
Getting back to Connecticut, where apparently my ex-wife lives. So, I mean, I immediately don't like it. But sorry, was that out loud?
Yeah, but Joe Frankie lives there, so we have to put.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't like everybody.
I was born there, for goodness sake.
Sorry, go ahead with your question.
So, if you feel fine talking about it, and I know it's different from person to person when you talk about experiences and whatnot. You had talked about that you got attacked in the house. What did that attack look like?
Oh, I got attacked so many times in that particular house. There was a lot going on there, and it was almost nightly. I mean, I could tell some real funny stories, but there were times like I'd be at work, and all of a sudden I'd get a sharp, searing pain, like I just got stabbed in my lower back, or that something was burning my nether regions. There was a time it was middle of August. I was in the master bedroom, it was the middle of daytime. This would be the only room that had air conditioning, and it was super hot. And there were French doors that would go down the stairs to the basement to the embalming room. And where I would sleep was right on top of the body hoist. There was a sealed cutout on the floor where there was a chain hoist that would lift the body and the coffin up from the preparation room below. Mm-hmm. And I was sleeping right on top of that chain hoist. And I could hear it starting to swing back and forth. And I heard footsteps coming up the stairs from the basement. I heard the French doors open. But I had psychic paralysis and I couldn't move.
Oh, wow.
The only times I've ever had this is when I'm in a haunted home. It's happened to me several times, but never in a normal situation, only in hauntings. And this one or two spirits, I have a sense of at least one very powerful one, was right above me, breathing in my face, and I'm screaming inside my head, by the power of Jesus Christ, I command you to be gone. By the power of Jesus Christ, I command you to be gone. And I'm just projecting this white cross outward. And finally, I was able to breathe and move again. But that was a pretty terrifying experience, I have to admit. My cousin,
Hmm.
we had just finished talking. He turned the corner. He saw this gargoyle face staring right at him, and he ran out of the house. He didn't come back for 10 days at least.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Somebody had asked a question. I just wanted to quickly
Hmm.
answer. It's from John A. He said, Chris, is
Yeah.
it true that your mom shares the same psychic gift that Lorraine had? And if she had ever used that gift? My mom hates the paranormal. It terrifies her. She wants nothing at all to do with it. She has no gifts. Passed her by. I do have the gifts. I suppressed them for a long time. I use them now quite a bit. My grandmother helped me with them. If you're somebody in need and you'd need help, if you're a psychic, we do have psychic support groups in English and in Spanish online on Facebook. Just contact us. We'd be happy to give you the link for that. It is only for psychics, but we've got almost 1,000 members now. So around the world that we help with their panic and anxiety attacks, with developing their abilities or suppressing their abilities or protecting themselves, all the different things that they have to deal with that ordinary people don't.
When you talk about, I think this is a question that can help people as well. Chris, why would you suppress your gifts? Why did you?
When I was 26 years old, I had had enough experiences. People would often ask me to read their auras, and I would, and then they would be terrified of me because I could see things that they made them uncomfortable. And when I was 26, I saw a man, middle-aged man. We were in some kind of sales meeting, and he had this black aura around him. And I said to myself, he's going to be dead by morning.
Wow.
Not a thing I could do about it. I didn't know why he was going to die, how he was going to die. Was it going to be a car accident, murder, whatever? And he was dead of a heart attack the next morning.
Wow. Wow.
And I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. So I would use my abilities to be able to tell if I was dealing with something negative in a home. But beyond that, I didn't want to do anything. Then when I moved down to South America, for some reason, people just assumed that I had these gifts. And so they were taking me places, having me speak to spirits, going into abandoned buildings and doing things. And my grandmother's gifts have really come through a lot, helped a lot of people pass over, communicated with suicides and others. And I'm glad that today I've embraced it. But it was something it took a long time for me to get used to.
I think it's a really interesting thing and very important, as you said, that you've been able to come around the corner. I think it's important that people know that even on such and forgive me for saying this if this sounds too grandiose, but on a quite the lineage, that not everyone wants to accept those right away, and not everyone may ever want to accept them, but there can be a purpose for it. There can be a good reason. I mean, what do you say to people who don't ever want to accept their gifts? Because it seems like that should be fine too, right?
It is fine too. It is fine. And there are ways to protect yourself from that. There are certain crystals for grounding yourself so that you don't get overwhelmed by different energies. If you take like clear quartz and hematite or obsidian, drawing onyx.
Black onyx or?
Yeah, black onyx. These are very good for grounding yourself. And the clear quartz helps amplify that to help you to suppress your abilities. There you go. Just don't put it in water because it will dissolve. Any of the ites dissolve in water.
Would you?
But there are plenty of other ways of learning how to psychically ground yourself, going outside and consciously doing that for yourself. It helps people who suffer from anxiety attacks, depression, panic disorders, as well as just psychics. So it's a very, very powerful tool.
So you would suggest, even if you are somebody who knows you have strong gifts and you don't want to use them, or you want that's just not your thing, which is totally fine, maybe to still reach out to like the Warren Legacy Foundation psychics, because they can help you get around that. I talk to so many people who are just like, I can't walk into, certain places because it's overload. I can't do it. And it's like, there's a way around that. You shouldn't have to live that way. I know that it's not as simple as that, but there are things that you can do to help yourself.
Absolutely, there are. And we would love to help. That's what we're here for.
And I really think, our psychic support group, I've been in there for a few months, and it's it appears to me that it is a very good safe space for people to ask any question they want to. They're not going to get ridiculed, because I've seen in a lot of paranormal groups, people will ask a question, and the guys that think they're pros will sit there and just belittle them, and they're like, well, I don't want to ask a question in this group ever again. But it's not the case with our psychic support group.
No, it's a very nurturing environment. I'm a therapist by trade, and I realized we needed a support group. After movies started to come out, we were hit with so many requests for help like this, and this was the best way to help as many people as we could. So yeah, it's not a place for finding readings or anything like that. And if anybody ridicules anybody else, they're going to get a nice private word from me.
Oh, the mods get on them. The mods get on them pretty quick. I mean, I have seen it attempted a couple times, but it gets struck down immediately. So
yeah,
good.
No, that's great. It's great that it's there. It's a good resource to have. But there's so many people who could benefit from that, and the idea of, with everything in our culture, it's a safe space. And the work that you do outside, as your trade, as what you do, I mean, that fits very well into investigation, into everything that has to do. I mean, and that was the thing when I talked to you all about joining the foundation. That was a big part of it. That it's helping people beyond the paranormal plane.
Sorry, I'm typing a banner. I apologize.
I'm like, boy, that got a lot of stuff going there. My good. I'm really good tonight with the questions. So if if I may say, going back to Connecticut, you yourself, Chris, how did you leave it? How did you leave that location?
How did I leave Connecticut?
Well, sorry, the haunting in Connecticut. The
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. No, you're still.
I could not wait to leave Connecticut. I've lived in over 85 places in the world. I just,
You could have answered by plane. That's how I left
in the
Connecticut.
same room together. No,
How did you leave that case? How did you leave that case?
Oddly, I wasn't at the actual cleansing that they did, which is a shame. I wanted to be, of course, but I wasn't. I was working that day. Damn it. And once it was done, their son no longer had schizophrenia. He was able to come home, and they got out of that house as quickly as they could. Once it was clean, all they wanted to do is get out.
Yeah, Carmen described it in that video that we've been referred to a couple times, is that it was like immediately like spring had entered the house.
Yeah. And
everything was fine. Her son didn't die of the cancer that he had. And you're right, they did. They got out of there as quick as they could, and they moved to, I believe, Kentucky. So yeah, it was an immediate thing. And I thought, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't it end in an actual exorcism? Isn't that what they called it? Or was it?
They called it an exorcism on television.
Yeah.
Well, but this was the documentary. I thought Carmen said, was it the minor rite of exorcism, which is a house?
A lot of people call these things exorcisms,
right,
but they're not. Houses cannot be exorcised.
Well, isn't that what the minor rite of exorcism is? Is a house blessing, basically?
If you want, I guess. Yeah,
But it's not a full-blown possession exorcism.
Possession is the only true exorcism.
Right.
Or the only thing that needs an exorcism, I should say.
It's interesting you say that, because I had watched so many things getting ready for tonight. Only thing that sticks in my mind, and we're not even talking about it tonight, was when Andrea Perron in her siblings snuck in to watch the seance that your grandparents were doing on their mother that involved like the mother speaking in different languages, being thrown across the room, the chair levitating, stuff like that. They called that a seance. That seems like much more of a violent seance than I've ever heard of, to be honest.
Yeah, and I've got a million different questions about phenomena like that.
Yeah.
Someone starts speaking in different languages. Does anybody else in the area speak those languages? Is she picking up on it psychically? Is it telepathic? I mean, are we actually dealing with a spirit here, or are we dealing with some out of control psychic abilities? Poltergeist phenomena, same thing. It can just be caused by a living human being. So for me, the diagnosis of what we're dealing with is always so much more important than anything else. It takes a long time. And I'm looking at all of these different people here and all of their questions. I wanted to say one thing. John is saying some nice things about my grandfather's paintings, and I'm going to let you all in on a secret here. My grandfather would do the broad strokes, and my grandmother would do all the fine detail work. So almost all of their paintings are collaborations, and they are beautiful. I agree.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
That's really sweet. Jeff, do we want to switch over to Maurice?
Sure. Let's go over that one a little bit. That's the that book that I just held up, Satan's Harvest. I think, Chris, go ahead and give a brief, I guess, summary of that story a little bit, and then I want to at least take away tonight one detail that really has never been shared. And I'll let you pick something, something that you remember that stuck out to you that maybe has never ever been talked about before.
And it can't be like lunch you had in the third day there. I mean,
right.
It needs to be.
It's hard. I've shared this case so many times because no other case has impacted me as firmly as this one has. Mm-hmm. For anyone who's ever seen the movie The Nun, that movie is a bunch of bullcrap. The Nun does not exist. It was a creation by the director and producer James Wan for the Conjuring 2 movie. My grandfather never painted the haunted nun. They came to life. None of this is real. The only thing that's real in the movie The Nun is during the credits at the end, and that's the exorcism of Maurice Theriault, a man known as Frenchie, the character Frenchie in the movie. In reality, Frenchie was a poor French-Canadian farmer living in Warren, Massachusetts, who was completely illiterate, couldn't read or write. He did speak French, though. No one else in the family spoke French. And he'd be working on his farm, and all of a sudden, he would start getting these burning sensations in his back. And when he would have somebody look at it, it would be words scratched into his back in French. And they would read it to him, and he could translate it for them. Things continued to get worse. He saw apparitions. There were things called apports. An apport is teleportation of an inanimate object. There was this really beautiful, intricate Turkish coffee set with this really high, thin coffee carafe and these tiny little coffee cups that sat in little holders on a silver tray or gold tray, I think it was. And one day this thing disappeared, and you know how there's curtain rods. Well, this thing was balanced far off balance on top of a curtain rod, so that only the edge of the plate was on the curtain rod and the rest was way over here, and yet it was staying right there on the curtain rod in the hallway, defying physics.
Yep.
We saw him come under possession several times, saw him come under attack, bleed from the eyes, vomit up blood. I saw my grandfather come under attack and have a heart attack. All sorts of amazing things happened on that case. Definitely one of the worst ever.
Wow. And you were a part of it the whole time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was going to college back then. I was only 21, 20.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was 20. And I was teamed up with a guy named Ray Jefferson at that point.
Okay.
Good, nice young man. There were a couple of former cops that also would come in on cases with us, on that case with us, I mean. And so we would take turns. But I remember it was one spring morning or afternoon. We were in the greenhouse, his wife, Nancy, Maurice, and Ray and I, and we were planting seedlings. And Maurice started complaining that his back was really cold. And I was, well, all right, it's a cold morning or afternoon.
Hmm.
Go on over to the heater and get warmed up. There's, a wood heater over there. And he stopped moving. And Adam and Ray's like, Chris, you think he's okay? And I look, and his eyes have got this slit appearance of a snake.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, get Nancy, bring her back to the house right away. And he was under possession. And I went right at him, making the sign of the cross in front of me, saying, by the power of Jesus Christ, I command you to be gone. I don't know, maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds of this. And he came out of it completely. And then he said his back was still feeling cold and wet. I pulled his shirt up, and his T-shirt was soaked through with blood. You could see 3 crosses in blood soaked through the shirt, T-shirt. I lifted up the T-shirt, and there's blood on his back, but there's no cuts. So I said, all right, look, I need to have this T-shirt. We want to have it tested for blood and see what kind of blood this is. Yeah, there we go. There it is.
Wow.
Yeah. And we went back to the house. He took off his shirt, his T-shirt. He handed me the T-shirt, and there's no blood on it. Nothing. Purely white.
You could see his back isn't scratched either, really.
Yeah. There, you could see the blood on the back.
Yeah. Yep,
but
you can see
no.
the blood on the shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
We have Aurora in the chat, and we'll get back to the case in a second. But I think she has a good question to define what a poltergeist is.
I would love to.
Yeah, because that's mistaken a lot. People think that if they got a poltergeist in their house, that it's an evil thing, and that's really not even close to what a poltergeist is.
Exactly.
It could be one of a number of things. It can be out of control psychic abilities. It can be just somebody going through puberty who's throwing off a tremendous amount of energy. Now, it's only going to happen in that particular house 9 times out of 10 because there's some kind of energy source in that house as well. Although I did work a poltergeist case in Tewksbury, Massachusetts, where we escaped to another town, and the entities appeared there in front of the children. And the children said, oh, it's right there in front of you. It's going to kill you. It says, it wants to kill you. I was like, okay, where? Yeah. And I walked right into where it supposedly was with the white light surrounding me. And then I said, you don't need to worry. You don't need to be afraid. There's nothing here that's going to hurt you. Now, whether or not this was hysteria brought on by the children, I'm not sure.
Because I've always been told that that a poltergeist literally means noisy ghost. Isn't that the interpretation?
That's what it means in German. It means
so it's not
ghost, but it doesn't mean it necessarily is. I have had human poltergeist spirits. Yep. I've had inhuman spirits, and I've had it be a very gifted autistic person and his mother who don't mix well. So whenever that he would visit her, all hell would break loose. I've had it be many, many, many other things. We've got psychics in the chat right now
Yep.
who've had poltergeist phenomena in their home, and it's caused by them.
Yep.
I've always felt too that it's more of an energy thing than a spirit thing. That's always just been my understanding of it.
I always thought from oneself, right?
Right. Yes.
My very first case was what would probably be called demonic. And it was without a doubt the most over the top poltergeist case I've ever experienced in my life. Over the top. Or would even believe in a Hollywood film. The whole house shook with pounding, growling noises, scratching, clawing from the walls, things flying across the room, the woman getting clawed, hulking black shapes coming down the stairs, lights going on and off, chairs flying across the room, all sorts of crap. You know, my grandfather was sure that was a demon. And when they did the cleansing of the home, the whole house filled up with black smoke. So it sure sounds like it probably was. It didn't go away. A year later, things were attacking again. They had to do another spiritual cleansing. But eventually it did pass over.
Very interesting. Wow. You know, as you talked about like the films, and I enjoy the films. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy the films for what they are. But the thing is, what I always look forward to at the end of the films is when they run the credits. And as you alluded to earlier, Chris, they play some actual recordings. And to me, that if you want to be scared, and that's not what this is about, I get it. But at the same time, it's like you're hearing stuff that, try to explain it. Try to explain it for those who are, really unsure and stuff. Like I'm just... it defines explanation, I think, in a lot of ways.
I agree. I like the credits. They are the best part of the movies, I admit. Like Conjuring 2, there's almost nothing realistic about those. Those two cases are real, but the stories are not. But Conjuring 2 credits, you'll hear actual recordings of the demonic voices that are coming through.
And there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those raw recordings on YouTube as well from that field case. There's that. That's way scarier than the movie ever was.
Totally.
Oh, there was actually a 2-part Enfield haunting miniseries on the BBC that was on YouTube a year or two ago. I don't know if it's still on, but it was called The Enfield Haunting. Just Google, see if it's available on YouTube.
I know a couple of people in the UK.
They exhumed her body too, correct?
What's that?
Or was it? No, that was a different case. I'm sorry. That was Annalise something, where they actually
Annalise Mitchell.
Her body. Yeah.
Yeah,
the Rosemary care. What was the movie on that one?
Yeah, the haunting of somebody Rose or Audrey Rose, I think. The Exorcism of Audrey Rose.
Something like that, yes. But I think isn't it Emily Rose?
Emily Rose, maybe.
It's Emily Rose, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But they exhumed her
Annalise
body.
Mitchell is the real case, and that was in Germany in the 70s. You can see actual video of her under possession on YouTube. It is pretty horrific.
It is frightening. That is some scary, scary stuff.
Yeah. And sadly, she should have been treated medically. She died of dehydration and malnutrition. Yeah, she had been hospitalized. They took her out of the hospital and did over 60 exorcisms on her. They killed her.
Yep.
Can I also, Jeff, point out to Nikki's question, because I think this is a really good. Yes, I think this is a really good one.
What do you think, Chris? Is it dangerous to watch a YouTube exorcism? Like to watch real exorcisms? Is it dangerous to watch that stuff?
If it's real and you're somebody really open, if you're psychically open, what have you, I would be a little concerned. If you're in a negative headspace, I'd probably avoid that stuff. I mean, if somebody comes to us looking for help and then they tell us that they love to watch paranormal shows, we tell them immediately, stop watching paranormal shows.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to be watching anything that's going to reinforce your fears. And the crap that they show on television and on YouTube, 99 out of 100 times is just that crap.
Yeah.
And you're not going to learn anything real, so don't bother. Now, isn't this a great segue? If you'd like to learn something real,
Go ahead, promote it,
this
man. I know where
Saturday-
this is going.
yeah, this is a shameless plug. This Saturday, I'm going to be holding another class through Truckee College. It's an online course, and Jeff, I'm going to ask if you could share the link.
What is?
I had it in private chat. I don't know if it's still there.
It's. I'm sure it is, but I don't know that I have the tech ability to go grab that and share that real quick.
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to.
But it is on. It is on our Facebook page, right?
So, I'm
It's
sorry?
on our. It's on the foundation's Facebook page. The link.
yes,
for
there
that.
is. There's,
So they can
there's
go
a
to
video
that.
of me talking, and there's a
Yep.
link out there for you to check out the course.
Yep.
And anyone
this-
following me, I have them on my pages as well. So
Correct. We've this will be the third time we've done this. It's a great chance for you to ask a lot of questions, to have real one-on-one time with me, to delve into the not only the real cases behind the movies, but to use those to educate you on all aspects of the paranormal, at least as much as we can fit into about 3 hours.
Well, that's the thing too. Even the casework that I currently have going on. I mean, each one is a stepping stone. You learn something from every case that you do that's unique to that case, and you. I can't remember what it was, but there was something the other day that just from an older case that like somebody had asked a question. I'm like, you know what? I've seen that before. It's a very odd point, but this is what it ended up being. And I can't remember what it was, but I mean, it's. You know, you do learn, and that's the great thing about the foundation too, is that like the other day or a week or so ago, I asked a question that a client had asked me because I didn't know the answer. I had an opinion on the answer, but I knew that like, man, I'm going to get bombarded with answers to this question that are going to be from people that know a lot more about that specific part of the paranormal than I do. And it was, you know, okay, Aurora posted the link.
Thank you, Aurora. I appreciate that.
But that, you know what I'm saying? It's, you know, that's the foundation is a great resource to where if I don't know what I'm talking about a specific topic, there's probably 6, 7 to 10 people in the foundation that are knowledgeable on it.
And for me, that's why it's so important that we have more people on the Warren Files every couple of weeks. It can't be about just a few faces representing.
Yeah.
There's so many amazing experts
Yep.
in this group. I am the most blessed guy in the world because of all of you guys.
That's something Greg and I have been talking about lately a little bit, offline, is that we're going to start making a little changes to this show. We're going to start doing some different things too, because I do feel like a lot of times we come on here and we talk about the same stuff. You know what I mean? It's repetitive. Now I'm not saying that's always a bad thing, because sometimes people need to hear it and they missed it the first time. But Greg, you just had a massive orb go across your face.
that's because there's a lot of stuff going on here. There always is.
But yeah, we're gonna be making some changes and doing some different kind of shows here in addition to what we normally do. But we've got some ideas that we're gonna kick around
And we're going to be adding some new guests. I know there are people in the South that we want to bring on for a special show again. We want to showcase people in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So we can let you see how the paranormal manifests in different locations. We're even working on a travel TV show where we'll go to different parts of the world, show you how the paranormal manifests, and show you how those cultures deal with those manifestations. So hopefully that'll come up in the next year or so, and you guys come along for the journey.
This is such a great forum to be able to talk about so many different things and really help, because I think the whole purpose of this foundation is to educate, and if you're not a part of it, you could you're still able to benefit from it, I guess.
I agree.
It's an amazing thing, and I think that this is a great way for, at least for people to dip their toe into the foundation, perhaps.
Well, I mean, Jeff was making some very sweet comments about all the people in the foundation and how they're all these people that have all these answers. The truth is, as Diane has said in the comments, Ed, my grandfather said, we're never going to know everything.
Yeah.
And the truth is, the answers that we come up with today are not the answers that we would have come up with 5 years ago, even.
No.
We're evolving as we learn more and more. As we get more information, we're able to better deal with these manifestations. I don't expect to have the answers in my lifetime. I hope to have them in my death time. But I'm just hoping we can help as many people as possible.
Is that part of the fun, in a sense, if you don't mind me using the word fun, is the chase for the answers, but knowing that you're not going to get all of them? I mean, just the general human curiosity, I think, is one of the things that really excites me about it, knowing that I'm not going to understand everything, but I'm going to have fun, or I'm going to help people. I'm going to do something to get there.
Well, for me, I've spent my whole life trying to help people one way or another.
Right.
That's how I make friends, and I like to make friends. The paranormal itself lost its allure years ago for me. I don't do this out of an insatiable curiosity. I only do it because I've seen enough yahoos on YouTube and the Travel Channel that I want to help as many people as I can in a real way, and not in the sensational ways that I've seen.
Kind of setting, not really setting the record straight. That's not quite the right word, but setting a course correction in some ways, I think.
Some ethics into this work, yeah.
And it's almost a double-edged sword too, because to be honest with you, you do have to have a big following to make an impact. You know what I'm saying? But you don't want to sell your soul to get that following, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is that they, we maybe don't debunk things like we should, and we're going to post this EVP even though it may not be, but it sounds like it, so we'll post it anyway just to get followers. And that's one thing we don't do in the foundation, is we don't embellish things to get people to follow us. I mean, granted, I'd love to have 1,000 people watch the show right now, because then you're making a bigger impact versus, and I'm not complaining about the 23 that we have, but you know what I'm saying.
Please, everyone, share when you can,
and
all of our links wherever they are, because one of the things we're finding is, as much as we want to help and as many great members as we have in the world, we're not getting the cases because people don't know about us.
Yeah.
We are low key. We are not pushy. So if you know people out there who are in need, if you know people who want to help, we're free, we're anonymous, and we're respectful. Please send them to us.
That's funny too, is because, how many times a day do you, or not a day, but I mean, it happens several times a week on the Facebook, the messenger for the Facebook page. How much do you guys charge to help me? I say, we see that 3, 4, 5 times a week at least.
At least.
We don't charge anything. It's
and it's funny. It's funny because it's like, you asked me, Jeff, I think it was like a week or so ago. You're like, someone asked me, have you let everyone know that you are part of the Warren's Legacy Foundation? I said no, and not because I didn't want to, but because I was waiting for a moment to do it where it actually had an impact, opposed to sounding like I achieved something. If you get my drift there, it's more because it's more of like, let me explain what I'm doing so that it helps people, opposed to just being like, oh, here's an acolyte. It's just because that's the thing that bothers me about this. And I want to kind of, if you don't mind, Jeff, I want to kind of challenge you also on the helping, I mean, I think you and I are on the same page about it, but at the same time, it's like, I don't have a big following, but I am happy with the people I have been able to help too. You know what I mean? It's the idea of like, there's been people out there that no one will ever know what we've done, and what I've done, and what I've done with friends of mine who are watching tonight. but all I do know is that there are people who have benefited from all of us on here and then beyond that will never be heard of, and that's
Yep.
exciting. That and we want to get more people in, but it's this is why I felt like I grooved with this foundation, because we are so alike.
Yep. Yeah, that's what. That it was funny because my wife came in, or we talked about. She heard bits of your interview, because she was in the background, and she was like, that every one of your answers could have been my answer. Like you and I I don't know. She really got a good psychic feeling about you and all that other stuff. So you're going to be a good do it.
I convinced you and I are the same person. I mean, I think we kind of figured that out over the last couple days.
Yeah, I chat quite a bit. So I'm gonna have to change my I love
Isn't
Joe
that
Frankie.
called a twin flame?
Yeah, could be. Oh man. So, what do you think, guys? It's 9:22 right now. I'm thinking maybe we should wrap it up.
Absolutely.
Whatever you'd like to do.
Do we want to end on anything specific, or?
Well, there's a question here from Amanda. How can you tell if exorcisms are real?
I'm looking for it.
I have had people say that they performed thousands of exorcisms.
There's no way.
If they're performing thousands of exorcisms, then they're a crackpot. They have not done any psych evaluations to make sure that we're dealing with something psychiatric and not supernatural manifestation. It's insane.
Yep.
They are incredibly rare, and they're very rarely filmed. We've filmed a couple of ours. We don't show the video, but we have them. How do you know if it's real? Nowadays, with digital special effects and so forth, you'll never know. You have to trust the person showing it to you. And they have to know firsthand that it's real because they were there. Otherwise, you can't trust it.
First of all, in my opinion, honestly, if it's real, if you see a video of a real exorcism, it's probably not on YouTube. You know what I mean? Because I think somebody that's doing a real exorcism is not going to post that on the YouTube channel because it's not entertaining. It's, if you're in the room and you witness that, you're not going to want to share that with people.
Yeah.
Having been involved with actual exorcisms and possession cases, it's pretty horrific. It's pretty terrible. And I've seen some in South America now that are interesting, but they're culturally different, where the believers open themselves up to being used by spirits, basically ridden like horses.
Mm-hmm.
So that form of possession isn't as combative, isn't as violent. It's a cooperative possession, which just goes to show how little we really know. And if we bury our heads in one religion, one spiritual path, then we're not really seeing the phenomena for what it is.
Yeah, because other religions don't believe in demons as we say that we are exorcising demons. They don't believe.
Yeah. And historically, they've changed over time a lot.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother show, though, talking about different religions and what their darker entities are and all that.
And we should do that. I think that'd be a fascinating one.
Yeah, we got to get maybe sometime get Stephanie on again to talk about the Muslim religion and the paranormal, because they view things a lot different than what we Americans do.
Absolutely.
That'd be very interesting.
Yep. And the South America thing too, it'd be great to have a lot of those countries on, except there's that language barrier. Most of them speak Spanish, because I do know that the paranormal stuff down there is a lot different than it is, what we did with up here.
We did a terrific Warren Files a couple of years ago when I was living in Brazil. It was in English, and it's about Umbanda, Kimbanda, other Afro-Brazilian religions.
Yeah.
And it was a fascinating program. I would highly recommend people check that one out.
And I know
There's another one about demonology and demons throughout history, which I've always been proud of that particular episode, even though very few people have watched it. I would highly recommend that one as well.
I think what I need to do maybe is go back to our YouTube page and just start posting some of those older episodes on the research page, so that because otherwise people may not go look for the older episodes; they may just look at the newer ones. But
And there's a wealth of knowledge there.
yeah,
So
yep,
yeah.
yep. I got it. I'm gonna, in fact,
Or a wealth of hot air, anyway. It's just me.
no. I've watched some. There's a lot of really good content there, but I'm gonna write that.
I'll be honest, Chris, if that's the case, I mean, it's very cold up in Minnesota right now, so I'd welcome it. So,
Come down to Colombia, man.
Yeah.
It's beautiful here.
that's
Sorry,
cool.
guys, I'm writing. I'm making a note. I turned 50 last week, so I think more note taking is going to be in my future.
Yeah, come on down to Colombia, man. You'll have a blast, I promise.
I bet. Oh my
All right, guys, I think we should wrap this up, and we're gonna. I don't think there's a set topic for next week, but I think we have a surprise idea for a really good show, and we're gonna start.
Oh, but there is one important thing.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Jeff.
No, we didn't have a happy birthday. It was depressing.
Well,
That-
everybody,
I fig-
please wish a happy birthday, belated
Absolutely.
birthday.
Happy
Jeff.
birthday.
No, I'll say this: you really don't know how many people you know until it's your birthday on Facebook. You know what I mean? It's like
Oh yeah, no,
like-
it's either good or bad, one of the two.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and it's people that I don't talk to all the time and stuff like that, but they still wish you a happy birthday. That's really, really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, very nice.
It is. It's very special. I'm
And I'm so weird about this. Okay, I never say happy birthday to people on Facebook, and here's why. Because I always think I'm going to forget somebody, and then they're going to be offended. So I just don't do anybody's. You know what I mean? I'll send people private messages, but
So you're rude to everybody, basically, is what.
no,
you're
I
saying.
send them private messages.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't want to forget somebody and then be, oh, you forgot my birthday, you jerk. So I just don't do it publicly for anybody.
It's a nice milestone birthday for you. It's just a number, though. At the end of the day.
I know, but like I said, with my healthy lifestyle, I probably got like 5 years left. I'm thinking maybe 10.
I remember being 50. Oh, that was a good time back then. Yeah.
Yeah. God, I remember when I was a little young punk 18-year-old on a construction site.
Alexander Graham Bell created this thing called the telephone, and
You youngins will never know the hard life.
I walked to school in the snow uphill both ways.
Jeff,
All
I'm
right,
not far behind you, Jeff.
Yeah. You look younger than I do, though. I'm starting to get really, really gray.
Technically, I am. I'm 49. So yeah,
But you
I
look
am.
quite a bit younger than me.
You're wrong. You're horribly wrong. I'm like Jabba the Hutt over here right now. For some reason I think someone put a spell on me that won't let me stop eating junk.
Do you have
food.
one of those?
And
Do you have one of those curses that one of those cases that we get sometimes?
it's that that's so easy to blame it on spirit that I'm fat, but I think it's just more on McDonald's that. So
The spirit of the clown.
spirit of the clown, yeah, pretty much.
All right, guys. Well, I think it's been a good show, and I think let's wrap it up, and we will see everybody again, and hopefully more people again in 2 weeks. So, thank you, Chris, for joining us and talking about some of the more in detail about some of the cases and things that your grandparents did, and about your grandparents, because I always like hearing things that I've never heard before about your grandparents. And,
Oh, I have things I could say.
yeah,
And now's the time to do it.
yeah. Let me hit end broadcast, and then you can see.
Yeah, right.
All right, everybody. Thanks. And Greg, I think this is going to be a pretty good partnership here. So
I haven't been fired after
no,
tonight.
you didn't get fired.
Oh,
after
no,
tonight.
no, no.
Maybe next
Okay,
time.
good.
God bless you, everyone. Hey, thanks for joining us this evening. And Greg, thanks for coming on and co-hosting. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again in a couple of weeks.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.